This is your Red Church Door sermon from Sunday, March 3rd, 2019, the last Sunday in Epiphany, from the Reverend Kelly Sunberg Seaman. Kelly is the vicar of St. Mark's Church in Ashland, New Hampshire, and the rector of Holy Spirit Church in Plymouth, New Hampshire.
Jesus took with him Peter and James and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. Think about those disciples, Peter, James, and John, hearing the words they'd heard before from Jesus at the beginning when he called them, and then over and over again, "Follow me." And this time, we're going up the mountain. Just think about Moses meeting God on Sinai and receiving the commandments. God gets up to stuff on mountains. Being on the mountaintop with God can be an interesting place to be. So maybe knowing that, maybe Peter and James and John were a little nervous when Jesus says, "Let's walk and talk. We are going up the mountain to pray." Rightly so, it turns out, because when they get there, Jesus prays, and the most astonishing thing happens. While he was praying, the appearance of his face changed and his clothes became dazzling white. Suddenly they saw two men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. They appeared in glory and were speaking of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Jesus transformed, transfigured, sheer light, an uncovered glimpse of that radiant love that is God, revealed in all its glory. And Peter's reaction is just so human in its complete lack of logic. "Master," he says, "it's good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." In other words, whoa, good thing we're here, because we shouldn't be seeing this. Let me build something to cover that all back up. Except Peter and James and John are precisely invited along to be there, to witness to the light, to the glory of God. And in that moment, even as it seems as the words are leaving Peter's lips, things become even more intense. A cloud descends. They are terrified. And then a voice. They are told directly not to cover their ears, not to look away, but to pay attention. Right here, right in front of you, right with you. Here he is, God says, my son, my chosen, the beloved one, with you. Pay attention, listen to him. And then it all dissipates, and there is Jesus, just Jesus alone. During the season of Epiphany, which is coming to an end, our readings from the Bible during the gospel time, from the arrival of the Magi onward, have been full of stories of people showing up and paying attention and calling Jesus who he is when that truth is revealed to them. Even the spirits Jesus casts out as he goes through the countryside healing people know who he is. All of these people in their own way, recognizing, acknowledging Jesus in those moments when, listening, they hear his voice and follow or obey. There's a model for us there. Show up, pay attention, acknowledge the light when you see it, when it's revealed to you, and then, and this is probably the hardest part, follow where it leads you. Because, of course, as Luke tells the story in this gospel, it leads right back down the mountain, right into the thick of it, into the mess and hurt of human brokenness. A great gathered crowd, a distraught father, the disciples and their failed efforts to heal the boy, and above all, the child himself, whose seizures shake and disfigure his body, literally throwing him down into the dirt. Luke has brought us so far from the bedazzling brightness of the mountaintop to this child dashed to the ground in convulsions. And in his healing, as much as in the glory Peter and James and John experience on the mountaintop, the astounding greatness of God is revealed to all who would see it at work. As we leave Epiphany and turn the corner into Lent, In just a couple of days, on Ash Wednesday, this Wednesday, we begin following the story of Jesus heading towards Jerusalem, and somewhere eventually very dangerous and dark, and not to put too fine a point on it, deadly. So Lent, and then even more intensely Holy Week when it comes, is the church's invitation to follow Jesus even there, all the way to the cross. But faith and the witness of nearly 2,000 Easters before the one that's coming late in April tell us that the story does not end in a dark, lost place. We are invited to follow Jesus all the way through to the glory that is coming with Easter and the resurrection. We will do our best to keep up with Jesus on this journey, but honestly, we will fall short. We will fall short. Much more often than not. We are so much like Peter, tempted like Peter to take Jesus to task for not following our agenda for him. Like Peter, proclaiming Jesus the Son of God, yet weighed down with sleep. Like Peter, swearing never to disown him, and then denying him outright, not once but 3 times. And yet, Jesus never gives up on Peter. If there's one thing to take forward into Lent, which this closing focus on the Transfiguration puts right in front of us, it is simply this: the light of Christ has come into the world. That's what the Apostle Paul, writing to Jesus' followers in Corinth, is getting at when Paul writes about Moses, whose own face shone from his face-to-face encounters with the Holy One. God's presence among us in Jesus the Christ, Paul suggests, removes the need for any veiling of that light. We are invited to grow into the full glory which life in and through Christ makes available. All of us, Paul writes, with unveiled faces, seeing the glory of the Lord as though reflected in a mirror, are being transformed into the same image, from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, the Spirit. The light of Christ has come into the world. It is there for us to perceive and to reflect and to project, to let it shine forth from our faces too. Let Christ's light shine inwardly in your heart, and let that light which is there because it is Christ's and the Spirit's gift to us, let that light shine out from your heart, from your face, into the world.
This sermon series and the redchurchdoor.org are brought to you by the Episcopal Church of New Hampshire and is a program of St. Peter's Episcopal Church in New Hampshire. The music in this recording has been supplied by membership through audioblocks.com. You can subscribe to these sermons and the Red Church Door podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts.